ANC says it's concerned by some parties making outlandish demands for cabinet positions through the media. It maintains that the president has the final say on who he appoints. Ziyanda Ngcobo is following these developments for us, and she joins us in studio right now. Ziyanda, good evening to you. So that statement coming from the African National Congress this afternoon, exactly what is the bone of contention here? What is the ANC accusing these parties of, and are they brave enough to name and shame?
They don't name them in the statement, Goli, but I'm willing to put my head on the block to say that they're speaking in particular to the Democratic Alliance. I mean, we've seen the reports that it would seem that the clashes are in the main with the Democratic Alliance in terms of the number of cabinet posts that must be allocated. The DA is arguing that there needs to be proportional representation. And the ANC is basically, it's very interesting that the ANC says it's an ANC-led GNU. So they've been very emphatic, to speak about that. And then they go on to outline the principles that the president will follow in constituting his cabinet. And they emphasize the fact that this cabinet, amongst other things, to have an inclusive approach, it deals not only with the executive, but also with parliament in terms of the allocation of positions. Now, there's now been a letter that has been circulating on social media, Goli, that was sent by Helen Zille to the African National Congress's Fikile Mbalula, which is what I believe is probably what is motivating the statement by the ANC, which basically gives them a list, gives the ANC a list of portfolios that they believe the DA should be allocated, and I'll read them out for you. Ministry of Mineral Resources and Energy, Ministry of Transport with Transnet reallocated to this portfolio, Ministry of Trade and Industry and Competition. Then you have the Ministry of Public Works, provided that infrastructure is also moved back to moved from the presidency back to Public Works, Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Public Service and Administration, Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Justice, Home Affairs, International Relations and Cooperation, and Communications and Digital Technology. So you've got 11 portfolios. They then go on to say that the DGs, the technocrats, the engine rooms, that will be reporting to a DA minister must be approved by panels consisting are selected by panels consisting of DA ministers and submitted to the president for his approval, and such an approval cannot reasonably be withheld. And that all the contracts of all current DGs would also need to reconsidered in light of our concern that incumbents may not be amenable to direction from the DA ministers. And then another caveat is that all tenders and departments reporting to DA ministers issued since the promulgation of the election date be reviewed. And then that a technical clearing house is established, which is consisting of a representative from each participating party with a mandate to resolve our differences over policy. And then what would seem to be, what I'm sure the ANC would interpret as a threat, they say, finally, please be advised that the Democratic Alliance participation in the governments in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal depend on our participation in government at a national level, which is the conversation, Goli, that we've been having about the discussions at national level, cascading to province and Gauteng. And that's why I want to bring in that bite by Solim Simanga, who seems to have a particular view as to why Panyaza Lesufi could not announce his cabinet yesterday. Let's listen in.
Understand that there's no party that has a great majority to govern on its own. Therefore, there needs to be an indication, or there needs to be a conversation around how you share power and how decisions are to be made. The third thing is you also now need to then say, if the two biggest parties in the province are to then share positions, what will be the proportionality? And therefore, if you then have parties that are coming from there, which should be accommodated, how do you then accommodate those parties? The fourth thing is to then say, once you have disputes, because you don't want to wait until you're months into an agreement, and therefore disputes start to arise, and then you start to try and find out ways in which to deal with disputes. You say then, let's find a way and agree on a principle first of all, before you go into this kind of thing. Once you've already done that, you then go into what kind of portfolios each will be getting, and then what kind of mechanisms we'll be putting in place to then keep each other to account. So once you've agreed on those principles, you then talk about the positions and you talk about the names, and therefore you're able to then make those plans.
All right, I want us to focus the attention on the DGs, the appointment of DGs, because the DA appears to be almost instructive here, that these DGs must be appointed through a panel. That panel must consist of Democratic Alliance ministers, and I suppose this would be one way to ensure that their preferred directors general are the ones that ultimately are appointed in these posts. Would that be a break with the past or with tradition of how DGs are appointed?
Yeah, so the argument that the DA is making is that their concern is that you can have a minister that is a DA minister there, but if you have a DG who might not want to take instruction from a DA minister in light of the ANC's cadre deployment policy, then they won't be able to affect the good change that they would want in the government. And that's what they are saying. But of course, then, what does it mean? Then this is not only negotiating for the politicians, but it will have a material impact on the people who have jobs within the government in terms of the bureaucracy of the state. And again, Koli, both sides seem to be talking about, no one has a majority, but they're not understanding each other some way, somehow. And it boils down to the fact that there is no real mandates that has been put on the table, a program of action. What is the rallying point or the foundation of these discussions before the positions? Because this is why it would seem that they keep missing each other. And the ANC is saying, well, you can't actually tell our president how to, allocate he should allocate parties in his cabinets. The GNU is not only limited to cabinet posts, but it also includes the legislature, as we saw, a deputy speaker coming from the Democratic Alliance, and that it's simply the prerogative of the president. So it seems from both sides they are claiming that one is bullying the other, but I guess it puts, those who are still left in the progressive caucus watching on to say they could actually come back and play an important role. I'm talking about the EFF and the MK party, whose members are being sworn in tomorrow. Yeah. It will also be interesting to see what also happens in the eThekwini Metro. If the DA is already saying that what is negotiated at national could affect the KZN and Gauteng governments, it means also at a local government sphere it could affect what happens in eThekwini. So all of these issues are cascading to all these other spheres of governance, which could see a reshift totally in Gauteng, in KwaZulu-Natal, where we know MK party got 45% of the vote. So it's very interesting to see how, again, these issues are also playing themselves out in the media, and they'd said that this wouldn't be the case anymore.
Yeah. The ANC, being the careful people that they are, I suppose, at a time like this, they were very careful not to mention any single party.
Yeah.
Yes, we assume in the media that they are talking to the Democratic Alliance. Our part as media is to authenticate whatever is circulating. Do we have any firm confirmations at the moment from the Democratic Alliance saying we take ownership of the letter that is doing the rounds? We recognize it. It is a letter sent by so-and-so.
Yes. Is
that going to be very important for us to do so that we are speaking with authority on something that is verified?
So the Democratic Alliance at this stage, we haven't managed to confirm it, but it seems that it is actually a real letter. It has been confirmed by others, but we have not yet firmly confirmed it. But if you look at Al Jamal's statement as well, which it says it has joined the new configuration in a bid to weaken the DA and its allies, it would seem that even within this current formation called the the government of national unity, that there are many, not just the ANC, but there are many like Al-Jamaah that are also taking aim with the Democratic Alliance. Remember, there was a lot of anticipation, Xoli, that a cabinet announcement would be made yesterday. And it would seem that the reason why this could not happen is because there is still this haggling around positions, which many are beginning to ask, what is the true intention of, some of the parties that form part of this GNU, if not then to represent their various constituencies? How is there going to be a reconciling of policy if the DA is saying it wants the position of international relations and cooperation with the stance that South Africa has taken as a South African government in terms of taking Israel to court, to the International Court of Justice, for an example? So these are conversations that don't seem to be had at this point in time, which is why you have some from the Progressive Caucus saying that these parties in the GNU are putting the cart before the horse. They're talking about positions, but what is the national program of action? What are the key priorities for the next 5 years that are going to be, need to be tackled, and then go about who is the best person for the job to achieve whatever goals that you set out.
Ziyanda Ngcobo, our politics senior reporter, thank you very much for your time.